Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, major growth and investment along the so-called Cummins Corridor. A tech startup calls on companies to pledge 1%. The University of Indianapolis introduces the Sease Institute. A smart fridge network comes to Indiana. We get updated on the state of higher education. An Indiana baseball icon tells his story. And a look at how elections impact economic development. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. Cummins has announced big investments along the so-called Cummins Corridor. They include $33 million in dozens of new jobs in Columbus and $35 million for a new digital and IT hub in Greenwood. Chief Executive Officer Tom Linebarger joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to talk about the growth.
First of all, this is a major announcement this week, and again, reflective of global growth, and that global growth will mean impact here in Indiana.
That's right. Cummins continues to expand our footprint globally. We're a leader in powertrains for commercial industrial equipment, and as you said, that global power means diesel and beyond now, given the new technologies that are coming up in our markets, and we're ready to respond to those. We've even figured out now that as many as 5,000 jobs in the U.S. have been added so that we can support our international markets. And then, of course, we have also a very strong presence in North America, and that's growing. So the company's future looks bright, and we've got to make a lot of investments to make sure that it sustains as a bright future.
You have announced tens of millions of dollars in investment this week in multiple locations. First of all, in Columbus at your headquarters operation there, there'll be a big investment there.
That's right. In Columbus, we've been investing there for years. It's a great place to operate. I mean, we feel very fortunate to call Indiana our home. The state is a terrific environment for business to grow and develop, and Columbus, of course, has been incredibly supportive as our home community. And we are now putting the headquarters of our new electrified power business in Columbus. That means we'll do our manufacturing there for battery packs and the full electrified powertrain. We're launching our first electrified powertrain into full production this year for a city bus. That's an exciting, they'll be available in Gillig buses by the end of this year. In fact, you could order one now if you'd like one. And so that's really exciting. New launch. We'll be adding about 75 jobs just to start with. We'll be investing in new equipment, outfitting our Columbus engine plant where it all began. So it's from the beginning 100 years ago. Here it is back as a new electrified power manufacturing location.
Another big piece of this plan, you go up north on 65 to Greenwood. I think this is reflective of the changing face of the company as a technology company. An IT hub, $35 million investment in Greenwood, 500 jobs, will be some consolidation there, but that's a major investment.
It is. What's exciting about that is our customers are now demanding information and services related to the information from the engines that we provide. Perfect example is telematics. We can now tell a driver anywhere in the country what's happening with their engine, when they'll next need service, what kind of predictive maintenance they should be ready for. A lot of information that saves them money, keeps them on the road, and the demand for those kind of services continues to increase. I think we're really just scratching the surface about what's available there. So what we're doing in Greenwood is we're bringing together the talents from our IT organization, our engineering organization, to be thinking about digital services for our customers and how to change our company to make it better using big data and analytics and digital services. So it's a big investment, but it's really an investment in the future. Both of these investments ensure that the company will be as strong 100 years from now as it is now, as it has been the last 100 years. So those are both exciting investments.
Big investment in Indianapolis as well, adding more development to a divisional headquarters you opened a number of months ago in downtown Indianapolis, so a big focus here.
In fact, the distribution headquarters, we call the DBU headquarters, this building is an amazing building. It's to work there is an absolute dream. I mean, I feel more energized every day. We had built 9 floors in the building. We had kind of filled the first 8, and we were waiting until we had enough people to fill the 9th. We've now figured out we got plenty. And so we're now opening up the 9th floor. We're also doing a little work in Salesforce Tower. We're opening an office there. And again, that's just to make sure, again, we have enough space for the growth of the company. It's an exciting time, and I'm really glad to be making these investments in our home state.
Tom, we're over time, but I have to ask you about the China situation, the tariffs, the retaliation by China back. You do a lot of business, obviously, in China. Your thoughts on the trade situation?
It's concerning. These are the two largest economies in the world. It's really important that we find a way to work together. There are issues, and I think the Trade Ambassador Lighthizer is right to be focused on trying to get China to be more fair to U.S. companies there, and I think they've got the right focus. I just hope and encourage both parties to work together to find a solution. Both will lose in a continued trade war. There's no question that Cummins depends on trade for our success, and so we're trying to be constructive, but we're hopeful the two parties see the opportunity for both countries if they get a deal.
All right, Cummins, 60,000 employees globally, 10,000 in Indiana. Those numbers growing. Tom Linebarger, CEO. Thanks for joining us.
Great to see you, Gary.
All right.
Still to come, UIndy unveils a new talent development effort, and a progressive food and technology company comes to Indiana. But first, tech startup Xylo is taking part in the Pledge 1% program and is inviting other companies to do the same. Xylo says it's part of the company's effort to boost the community it calls home. Co-founder and CEO Eric Christopher came in studio with more.
Give me, first of all, that for those who may not know, certainly Xylo and the stars in the tech community, growing tech company. Give us your business model briefly.
Yeah, we're a software company ourselves. We target large companies. Customers are companies like Eli Lilly here locally, Nike, Uber. Given how software has taken off so much, there's so many software companies. They have so many companies that buy software, it's changed. And they have so many to manage, and it's really difficult. So we actually, ironically, are a software company that helps businesses manage their software applications, save money, time, resources.
You talk about time and resources, and certainly Xylo making an impact on community in terms of jobs and your investment, but you want to give back to community in real tangible ways with this Pledge 1% initiative. Talk about that, what the program's all about, and why you decided to do it.
Yeah, that's great. So the Pledge 1% was actually started by some tech pioneers. And it's really a way that companies can adopt to be a purposeful way to give back. And so the idea is you give 1% of your time or profits, even equity, products, so you can kind of choose different things that you want to give in your stage. And it's a great way for organizations where you're a little bit smaller, even great for big companies, but to really give back in a purposeful way, network of tools, resources, and things like that. So that's why we chose to partner with Pledge 1%.
Can you talk about how what that looks like for Xylo, the Pledge 1%?
Yeah, we're 50 employees now, just and 2.5 years old, so we're growing quickly. As we thought about our values of our company, our employees really spoke out to say, we want to do something bigger than just build a great company. We want to really help the local community. And so we chose to do it now, build the DNA, community into the DNA of our business very early on, and then hopefully even inspire others to kind of join us along the way with it.
The tech community in Indianapolis in general, Indianapolis in specifically growing very rapidly. Do you see this Pledge 1% model as a way for tech companies to really give back?
Yes. In the Bay Area where it kind of all originated, there are many companies. I think there's hundreds of companies, maybe even more, doing this. In Indianapolis, there's a few others, even like Lessonly is a company that's here that's chose to do this. And so we think this could be a great way to sort of network together companies so that you could take this great technology community and be able to give back in a more scalable way.
Yeah, very quickly, you're a native of Richmond. I know we talked earlier in the week. Richmond is a community, like a number of others, been hit hard by the manufacturing economy. You're thinking of ways to give back in a community like Richmond as well.
Yeah, that's a great community that brought me to where I am today. And for me, being in technology, I go back to see my parents quite a bit. They still live there today. And there's definitely a disconnect as to when you see headlines about companies raising millions of dollars and successful exits and all the things that go with technology, how is it really going to directly connect to them? I don't know all the answers, but I think by being more purposeful and measure about giving back, I think we can find better ways and start a conversation about it. So it's a passionate thing for me.
Yeah, very good. Eric Christopher is the CEO, co-founder at Xylo, the Pledge 1% program. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Later in the podcast, a network of automated smart fridges comes to Indiana, and the state's higher education commissioner talks adult education and college readiness. But now, the University of Indianapolis will launch the Sease Institute in July. The school says the effort will help meet the growing need for regionally based, high-skilled talent to fill the local pipeline. UIndy President Robert Manuel and Sease Institute Vice President Corey Wilson talked about what the university calls an innovative model.
Rob, as I mentioned, Gene and Joanne Sease with a gift to create this institute. Gene, a former president at the university and a great community leader. Regional talent, regional workforce is such a huge issue. How does this address that?
So in lots of areas around the country, there are partnerships that are made between higher education institutions, companies, and other nonprofits that create regional economic advantage for the areas. And we're hoping to step into that void here and help with the progress in that area.
Yeah. Corey, talk about how the center will actually, the institute actually will work. I know you talk about a lot of flexibility, and I'm sure there's a lot of collaboration and communication with the business community.
Absolutely. The Sease Institute leverages the partnerships that we have with our faculty as well as our broader network to really engage corporations where they are to solve the problems that they have in a way that is responsive to their needs in a timely manner.
Yeah. Can you talk about, are there specific industries that will be focused on, at the Institute and how it really will work?
Absolutely. We're looking at healthcare, business, technology, and nonprofit. Those are the core sectors that we're starting with, but obviously other industries within that will be engaged in the process.
Rob, there's been a lot of talk and complaints, if you will, about the disconnect between academia and the business community over the years. I assume this is a direct shot at that and saying, hey, listen, this is an opportunity to really connect the two for the greater good.
So higher education is under attack right now. We're too expensive, we're disconnected, we're not connected to the communities we serve. And this is an opportunity for us to do both and, to be the educational entity that we know the community needs for long-term economic stability, and to create flexible programs that help us with the now problems of how do we train people and educate people for right now.
The Institute obviously will have impact here in Indianapolis and the UIndy campus, but you really have a statewide model in mind for the Institute, right?
So we'll go where the opportunity is. This education shouldn't necessarily be bound to our physical campus. If a company has a problem or an opportunity on site, we need to be there creating the educational programs to help them solve the needs that they have on that site. And we will work with talent that we have from around the university, really around the globe, to put together the educational experience that's meaningful for the company at that place. And we'll work with people like Jason Kloth and Ascend to connect and do that work as well.
Yeah. Corey, you see this as, I would assume, as a recruiting tool for prospective students to have this type of asset at UIndy is something that can be an attractor.
Absolutely. And I would say in addition to that, also the employers from an HR perspective, knowing that the talent that we are producing from an undergrad perspective is going to be trained, and that opportunity for upskilling within the organization is a benefit as well.
Very quickly, Rob, do you want this to be really a thought, kind of a thought leader location, if you will, when it comes to workforce?
Correct. I think there's an opportunity in the United States for a center like in Indianapolis to produce information about what makes workforce development work, and then study that, but also apply it in lots of different regions around the country. Exciting development. The Sease Institute at UIndy. President Rob Manuel, thanks for being here. And Corey Wilson, the VP at the Sease Institute, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, an update on the state of higher education in Indiana, and a new book tells the story of an Indiana baseball success story. But first, Farmer's Fridge is a rapidly growing network of 250 automated smart fridges, which the company says are stocked with chef-curated, restaurant-quality meals and snacks. The food tech company has now expanded to Indianapolis. Farmer's Fridge Director of Communications Rachel Rishal spoke with Kylie Valletta in the Business of Health.
Well, let's start with what people care most about, the food.
Yes.
Tell us how it's more healthy or nutritious than what we would typically pull out of a vending machine.
I think people's first perception when they see this is can this be as fresh and healthy as I want it to be? And the answer is a resounding yes. We make the food every single day in a state-of-the-art facility, and the lettuce is hand-chopped. The dressings are made from scratch. We work with wonderful suppliers and try to work with local sources whenever possible. So the food is extremely fresh, far more so than you're going to get in our competitors' outlets, perhaps. And the flavor profile is fantastic. It's restaurant-quality food delivered in a very smart, automated system.
Convenient.
Very convenient, yes.
So you have an interesting startup story. This is the brainchild of a Chicago entrepreneur. So you started in Chicago, expanded to Milwaukee. Indianapolis is your third market. So of all the markets you could have chosen, why did you expand to Indianapolis?
Well, I first want to credit our founder, Luke Saunders, because he had this brainchild, and it is a really difficult business model to bring fresh, healthy food to people on a daily basis to now almost 300 fridges across 3 different markets. But Luke always wanted to expand across the Midwest, and after Milwaukee, he really thought Indianapolis would be a great fit, that people would appreciate fresh, healthy food, they'd appreciate the price point and the convenience, and we have just been really astounded and validated by how people have responded so far.
And you're in a lot of office buildings downtown, the Salesforce Tower, for example, which I'm sure has more than 500 people, as you explained. You talked about how you're really a supply chain business at the heart. Explain that.
So Farmer's Fridge owns every aspect of the business, which I think is fantastic for quality control. So we produce all of our own food, as I said, down to making dressings from scratch. We have our own delivery fleet and work with our own drivers. We produce and create the technology that fuels our business so that we can run a predictive algorithm every single night and forecast demand. So we know how each fridge should be allocated so that we're being very deliberate and minimizing waste. So Farmer's Fridge's ecosystem is so robust, and I think that really helps the business to be so successful.
So how is business going in Indianapolis? You've been here a couple of weeks now.
Well, knock on wood, it's great so far. We have been collecting wonderful anecdotal feedback from customers who are amazed that this is such a wonderful addition to their lunch routine, their snack routine. As you and I were talking about grabbing before you go to a baseball game so that you can eat something healthy while you're watching your kid play, I think people really have a pressing need and a desire for fresh, healthy food at a reasonable price point that takes 30 seconds to access. And I'm hoping that we'll have many, many more fridges in Indianapolis with our eyes on broader expansion.
And let's talk about the app a little bit, how the customers use it, and also the flip side of it, how it gives Farmer's Fridge information that you can use.
Yes, it's a very mutually beneficial app. I highly recommend downloading from the App Store. But one thing that's so valuable is you can see inventory. So even today when I was downtown, I was checking the app. I saw that I was 0.1 miles from PNC Center. I'm able to see what's in the fridge. I know that they have a Greek salad, that they have a North Napa salad. So my favorite item is going to be there. And eventually we're working towards a reserve and pay function. So you can actually pre-buy your salad or sandwich or wrap and have it waiting for you. And then on the backside, we're able to collect valuable information about customer preferences, how to best communicate with them. So it's a really great win-win situation for us.
And it's sustainable for the environment, but another key piece is you donate the food that is left in the fridges.
Yes, again, credit to Luke Saunders and the DNA of Farmer's Fridge, which was really oriented towards philanthropy. So he understood that if you're going to be in a fresh food business, there will always be surplus. And food pantries, more than anything, really want fresh produce. So from day one, we have donated all of our surplus food to community members in need. We're working with gleaners here in Indianapolis, and we're very proud to provide nutritious, wholesome meals to people that really need that kind of health and nutrition in their diets.
Such a fun concept. Good combination of health and food and fun. Thanks for making the trip from Chicago to be here. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much.
Later in the podcast, a big name in Indiana baseball tells his story, and we look at how elections impact economic development. But now, Indiana Commissioner for Higher Education Teresa Lubbers recently delivered her annual State of Higher Education address. Among her focuses, adult learning and college readiness. She spoke on both and more in our Eye on Education segment.
Lots to get to here. First of all, you gave in April your State of Education report, a number of things coming out of that, including these educational pathways. When you talk about pathways and what they mean, what they can mean for a variety of people, what are you talking about?
We're talking about everybody having an opportunity to fully participate in the new economy. So that's everything from graduating high school students to a returning adult who might come back at 35 or 40 or even later, aligning what people know with what they do. Mm-hmm. And so multiple pathways are really important in that regard. And one size fits all doesn't really work.
Is it a changing face of education, I guess, but also maybe a change in the culture of Indiana that's taking place to understand what education really is all all about including the whole lifelong learning model.
Absolutely. We're in the process of changing a culture of a state where you could get a good job without education beyond high school. That is increasingly not the case. 99% of the new jobs that have been created since the recession require some sort of education beyond high school. That doesn't mean a four-year degree for everybody, but some sort of a quality credential or training beyond high school. And we need to make sure that Hoosiers throughout the state understand that and are prepared.
In your address, you also talked about a new higher education compact.
What we want to make sure is that we understand that at a time when we're telling people that education beyond high school is more important than ever, that they can afford it, that they're getting degrees that matter, that are aligned to the needs of the workforce. It's really about personal prosperity and well-being, meeting the needs of the employers, and strengthening Indiana's economy. That's all part of the new compact.
Switching gears a little bit, but in terms of the state of education, the annual college readiness report came out. A couple of takeaways. One that I noticed is remediation rates that were 28% or so in 2012, all the way down to 12%. So a pretty big improvement.
Yes, and that's so important. When students start to college and they need remediation, they are far less likely to complete. They may use financial aid until they start in those credit-bearing courses. So making sure that we understand that they're college ready and they don't need remediation has been a big success in recent years.
And you're seeing lots more students in high school earning college credit in high school, right?
We reported this time that 64% of students graduating from high school have some sort of early college credit, wow. AP or dual credit, meaning that they are more likely to go to college, graduate on time, and be prepared for the world of work.
Mm-hmm. How about the 21st Century Scholars Program, a really high-profile program? I think next year, the 30th anniversary for that program. What is the state of the 21st Century Scholars?
It is a marquee program. It has been replicated across the country. 21st Century Scholars are seeing double-digit improvements. They're going to college at the highest level of any population. 86% of scholars go ahead into higher education. They're persisting. They're completing at higher levels. And when you compare them to their low-income peers, because this is an income-based program, when you compare them to their low-income peers, they are exceeding them in every level. Mm-hmm. Low-income students who are not 21st Century Scholars, we are not seeing the same level of success.
Mm-hmm. As you look at college-going rates, the numbers suggest that those college-going rates in Indiana have decreased slightly, putting Indiana below the national average. Cause for concern, dynamics involved?
We're about at the same, we're within, it's about two-thirds, and that's the national average is 65 to 66. We've gone from 65 to 64 to 63. I don't think it's concerning yet. I think we need to watch it and make sure that we understand that people are accessing some sort of higher learning beyond high school. The good news story in the midst of all that is those who are going are more prepared and are more likely to succeed. We're seeing in the last 5 years, we're producing 10,000 more credentials. So we're seeing double-digit improvements in on-time completion. So the metrics that we use are very positive.
A lot of focus continues to be on education, on workforce, and that relationship between business and education. Teresa Lubbers, the commissioner of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. As always, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
All right.
Still to come, a dive into the effects elections and economic impact have on each other. But first, Max Schumacher began working for the Indianapolis Indians in 1958 and became general manager in 1961. Over the years, he collected stories about baseball legends, including Harmon Killebrew and Ken Griffey Jr. He tells those stories and more in his new book, which he wrote with Mark Monteith. They join Bill Benner for Inside Indiana Sports.
Lots to get to here. First of all, you gave in April your State of Education report, a number of things coming out of that, including these educational pathways. When you talk about pathways and what they mean, what they can mean for a variety of people, what are you talking about?
We're talking about everybody having an opportunity to fully participate in the new economy. So that's everything from graduating high school students to a returning adult who might come back at 35 or 40 or even later, aligning what people know with what they do. Mm-hmm. And so multiple pathways are really important in that regard. And one size fits all doesn't really work.
Is it a changing face of education, I guess, but also maybe a change in the culture of Indiana that's taking place to understand what education really is all about, including the whole lifelong learning model?
Absolutely. We're in the process of changing a culture of a state where you could get a good job without education beyond high school. That is increasingly not the case. 99% of the new jobs that have been created since the recession require some sort of education beyond high school. That doesn't mean a four-year degree for everybody, but some sort of a quality credential or training beyond high school. And we need to make sure that Hoosiers throughout the state understand that and are prepared.
In your address, you also talked about a new higher education compact.
What we want to make sure is that we understand that at a time when we're telling people that education beyond high school is more important than ever, that they can afford it, that they're getting degrees that matter, that are aligned to the needs of the workforce. It's really about personal prosperity and well-being, meeting the needs of the employers, and strengthening Indiana's economy. That's all part of the new compact.
Switching gears a little bit, but in terms of the state of education, the annual college readiness report came out. A couple of takeaways. One that I noticed is remediation rates that were 28% or so in 2012, all the way down to 12%. So a pretty big improvement.
Yes, and that's so important. When students start to college and they need remediation, they are far less likely to complete. They may use financial aid until they start in those credit-bearing courses. So making sure that we understand that they're college ready and they don't need remediation has been a big success in recent years.
And you're seeing lots more students in high school earning college credit in high school, right?
We reported this time that 64% of students graduating from high school have some sort of early college credit, wow. AP or dual credit, meaning that they are more likely to go to college, graduate on time, and be prepared for the world of work.
Mm-hmm. How about the 21st Century Scholars Program, a really high-profile program? I think next year, the 30th anniversary for that program. What is the state of the 21st Century Scholars?
It is a marquee program. It has been replicated across the country. 21st Century Scholars are seeing double-digit improvements. They're going to college at the highest level of any population. 86% of scholars go ahead on into higher education. They're persisting. They're completing at higher levels. And when you compare them to their low-income peers, because this is an income-based program, when you compare them to their low-income peers, they are exceeding them in every level. Mm-hmm. Low-income students who are not 21st Century Scholars, we are not seeing the same level of success.
Mm-hmm. As you look at college-going rates, the numbers suggest that those college-going rates in Indiana have decreased slightly, putting Indiana below the national average. Cause for concern, dynamics involved
We're
there?
about at the same, we're within, it's about two-thirds, and that's the national average is 65 to 66. We've gone from 65 to 64 to 63. I don't think it's concerning yet. I think we need to watch it and make sure that we understand that people are accessing some sort of higher learning beyond high school. The good news story in the midst of all that is those who are going are more prepared and are more likely to succeed. We're seeing in the last 5 years, we're producing 10,000 more credentials. So we're seeing double-digit improvements in on-time completion. So the metrics that we use are very positive.
A lot of focus continues to be on education, on workforce, and that relationship between business and education. Teresa Lubbers, the commissioner of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. As always, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
All right.
And finally this week, the primary election season has come and gone, with economic development issues front and center in several Hoosier communities. In our Eye on Economic Development segment, KSM Location Advisor CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp talk about how elections impact economic development and vice versa.
The primary political season is behind us now, but as you just mentioned, certainly economic development issues, jobs issues can play a real role. And I look at Hamilton County, and there's so much growth, so much activity going on there, whether it's Fishers, Carmel, or Westfield. Let's talk a little bit, Tim. First of all, in Fishers, Mayor Fadness has had a very aggressive agenda.
Yeah, I mean, once he became mayor, it became all about development. He's done a lot downtown and really throughout the city. That was a focal point of that election, and he won handily in the primary, over 60%. So even though there are people that were opposed to that speed of growth and where the growth has happened, he won pretty resoundingly.
And victories, the incumbents in both Carmel, where there's been a tremendous, certainly amount of development, and Mayor Andy Cook in Westfield with Grand Park, which was a very ambitious project that's very high profile.
Yeah, and in that case, he was unopposed. So if you look at all three of those communities, they have all been very economic development-minded mayors, and they all won re-election at the primary level.
Yeah, I know there's a bit of a difference here. Tim, you think that's a validation of those policies and that pro-growth agenda. Katie, you look a little deeper at some of the results, maybe not at the top, but in some of the council races is maybe not quite matching up with that.
Yeah, we're a risk-averse people, we Hoosiers, and I think you've got some really strong, powerful executives who garnered the support of many. But if you look at the council, there was turnover in some of the seats, and some of them were surprises. And I think development was a critical issue in some of those elections, and I think what that reflects is sort of growing concern, just not elevated to the level of really wanting to make a huge change at the executive office. So I think it speaks to some of the undercurrents in some of these communities.
Can that dynamic, if the change at the council level, impact the agenda going forward? If you've got, some differing opinions on the council, could that have an impact going forward?
Definitely. I mean, any new administration, it always takes a while for everybody to understand and get up and running. But when you look at the primary economic development tools at the local level, TIF, tax abatement, all of that has to go through the legislative body. And if there are members on the council now who are philosophically opposed to some of that, or maybe just uncertain, not only may it impact the outcome, but it will certainly elongate the process.
You're past the election, as you look at how the results impact economic development going forward. Things like here in Indianapolis with Mayor Hogsett and his views on TIF and those types of things.
Yeah, so when Mayor Hogsett was elected, they really restructured how they did TIF deals, where they required the developers to back those bonds. That was a significant change in policy. I think the mayor would tell you, and it's what Katie and I have seen, it really has not slowed the impact and the speed of projects in downtown Indianapolis. But that's the type of thing that you see policy-wise when you have a new mayor come in place.
And it seems that the party affiliation maybe doesn't necessarily have a tremendous amount to do with it. You have a Republican in the governor's office and a number of mayors and other economic developers on the Republican side, but there's not really that. There's some disagreement sometimes, even inter-party.
Well, I think if you look at just statewide this year, obviously we've got a Republican governor, we've got Republican legislature. Yet there were times they disagreed on either what the issue of the day should be or how fast some of those proposals got passed.
Yeah. Let's talk about moving to the fall and the general election. Do you see some big issues on the horizon? I know in Zionsville there's a project, Sycamore Flats, I think it's been very high profile and perhaps a bit controversial. How do you see that going forward?
Yeah, well, the Zionsville, that particular project had over 3,000 signatures in opposition to it. It was an issue leading up to the primary. I think it's going to be a key issue as you look at the general election in November.
And Katie, as you go statewide and you look at a place like Fort Wayne, where there has been major change downtown. Fort Wayne doesn't look like the same city. A lot of big projects. So that's been a pretty aggressive growth agenda there as well.
Yeah, they have a number of at-large council seats, and it was really up for grabs even in the primary. I think the general is going to determine a lot. And again, I think the speed of development, land use issues, a lot of these things are the underpinnings of these elections.
Before we leave, I want to get your opinion on the big Cummins announcement late in the week. Major investment in Columbus, in Greenwood, in Indianapolis. The Greenwood investment is for an IT hub, $35 million investment, 500 jobs, some of them consolidation, but a big win for Greenwood.
An exciting win for them. I think Mayor Myers feels validated. He's invested a lot of money into downtown. They have wanted to get away from just doing some of the more big box type of stuff. Cummins and that type of use is a big home run for them. Yeah,
the Cummins beginning its second 100 years in business with a big splash. Tim Cook and Katie Culp, as always, thanks for some great perspective, and we'll talk to you soon.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.